Welcome to the GreenPilled Network podcast. If you're just joining us, we're building a coordination, a network society of thousands of hackers, dreamers, and doers using crypto to bring positive sum digital systems to the world. This podcast features the people who are doing it, and we publish a season of episodes every couple months. This season is Lean Mean Capital Allocation Machines. How will the world's capital allocation change? Will we have more scalable, precise, capital allocation mechanisms? Will be able to remove intermediaries and create more democratic systems of capital allocation? How can Web3 maximize not just financial returns, but achieve impact equals profit, ecosystem growth, public goods funding, and protopia? Can we build economic systems that precisely allocate capital at scale? And what are the coolest experiments doing so? These are the themes of Greenpill Season 4, Lean Mean Capital Allocation Machines. One special thing we're doing this season is allowing you to collect this episode and all episodes in this season. Go to pods.media/greenpill to find all the episodes and to start collecting. Thank you to jtnickel.eth, hal.eth, simonsSD.eth, zeroxlucas.eth, skydow.eth, Sean W. Bren.eth, MMA on chain, and James.eth for being our top collectors of Greenpill so far. If you want to learn more, visit our website at greenpill.network, where you can download the GreenPilled Book for free or join the Discord and become a member of your local greenpill.network chapter. My guest today is Mahesh Murthy, the founder of Karma. Karma is building DAO toolkits to measure contributions, enhance governance, and enhance the way that we do grantee accountability. We're talking about Karma GAP today, which stands for Grantee Accountability Protocol. Basically, is a way that grantees can showcase their work, keep their community updated, and build reputation in Web3. So basically, as we're chasing this meme of impact equals profit, GAP allows grantees to post their updates and their milestones of what they've been working on to their community, which allows funders, people working through the Gitcoin ecosystem or Optimism or any other ecosystem, to have a more informed decision about what they're funding and where their ETH is going in Gitcoin grants or Optimism Retro PGF or any other capital allocation machine out there. So just have a deep respect for Mahesh as a builder. He's one of the fastest shippers I know. Karma is always adding new things to its application suite and is really innovating in the space of grantee accountability. Gitcoin is actually building a integration with Karma, in which, since Karma Gap is a protocol, grant accounting protocol, the updates that are being shipped through Karma Gap are actually available via Gitcoin Grant Stack. So we talk a little bit about what it means to be building based off of protocols in Web3 and how Web3 is just kind of this ultimate capital allocation machine. Not only is there millions of dollars available to people who are having impact, but blockchains also allow for better tracking and coordination around that impact. So it was a fun episode with Mahesh, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Hey, Mahesh, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Kevin?
Pretty good. I am excited to talk about Karma. Tell us about Karma.
Karma is it's a suite of tools for builders to build up reputation, build a reputation, and showcase their reputation, which has a lot of implications. Our goal is to really help them build reputation.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could take us deep on some of your products. I know that Gitcoin uses a couple of these, but for those of us unfamiliar with Karma, how can I use it?
Karma has been around we started 2 years ago. I think the first product which we built, which we still have, is the governance product, which is it's the delegate dashboards. So there are a lot of DAOs who use the delegation model for governance. And one of the challenges is who are these delegates? How active are they in the DAO? So we wanted to solve that problem and show the token holders, like, these are all the delegates, this is their reputation. If you have tokens, you can go delegate to them. So we built a product called the Delegate Dashboard, which Gitcoin also still uses, where we go and pull all the delegates on chain, index all their voting power, index all their activity on forum, Discord, all their on-chain and off-chain voting history. We aggregate all of them and then quantify and then generate like a reputation score, which is used for a good number of use cases. One for token holders to delegate their tokens, It's been used recently for compensation, and also I think those, and also some DAOs use it for like council elections and things. So it has like a few fairly
Nice. Yeah, I know that Gitcoin has used that. I think we called it our steward report cards. If I recall, Karma powered that, and you could basically look at the different stewards who are out there. Stewards is just Gitcoin's name for delegates, and reshuffle your delegations based off of who was most active or was voting in accordance with your values.
yeah. So we have like tons of features, like a lot of like I can talk about it for like an hour, but there's like tons of features around it. You can slice and dice the data, look at it in different ways, and get a lot of insights out of it.
And then so this season of Greenpill is all about capital allocation, and basically what are the ways in which different DAOs are doing capital allocation on chain. One of the so we just talked about the delegate tracker. I know you're also working on something called Gap. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, GAP stands for Grantee Accountability Protocol. It's a protocol and an application we built for two use cases. One is for grantees to build up their reputation. So grantees receive funds, and then they have to they have to execute on those projects which they got funded for. So this is a good way for them to keep the community updated by posting updates on what they're doing, the kind of impact they're having, their metrics. They can like put everything on chain and keep the communities updated on how they're utilizing the funds and what their progress is. That way they can build up their reputation as well. And then for the communities, it's this one-stop shop, like one place they can go and look at all the projects their community has and the DAO has funded, and see the status of all the projects, where they are, and for all the ones who have completed, they can go review those projects and say like, yeah, this was a good thing we funded, we should continue to fund things like these, or we should say this was a good experiment, it didn't really work out, next time we should make sure like we don't fund such projects, like it just didn't turn out. So you can get like a constant feedback on how the funding has been like allocated and what's happening. So it kind of solves both sides of the problem for builders and for the communities.
So Gap stands for Grantee Accountability
Protocol.
Protocol, and it's basically a way to create visibility and accountability into what grants are doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Yeah, I'm at gap.karmahq.xyz. If you're listening to the show and you want to plug that into your browser, you're welcome to. It's also in the show notes if you want to check it out. So basically, this is a way to connect the impact that these grants are doing to the amount of funds that they're receiving. So I think it's an interesting way to create accountability for grantees, and grants are obviously a huge part of how capital allocation is done on chain.
Yeah, so we started building this probably 5 months ago, I would say, and it's all built on it's all on chain, and we chose EAS, Ethereum Attestation Service, to build this. It's because most of the work is done by the grantees, and they are basically attesting that I did this. Like I received this grant, I created these milestones. They go and post updates on these milestones. So it felt like that was like a good um, a Lego block EAS to build on top of. So that's what we are using. And we have deployed this on. We started with Optimism, so a lot of communities are on Optimism. Now we are also multi-chain, so we have it on Arbitrum, and we can easily spin up any L2. We can deploy it on it.
So I'm at gap.karmahq.xyz, and then I can click into all the different communities using Gap. As you said, Arbitrum, Gitcoin, Optimism, Public Nouns, and Pocket are using Gap. But I'm clicking on the Gitcoin logo right here, and I see a handful of projects that have posted updates on their grants using Gap. So what I think is interesting is like you're taking the basic data structure of a grant, which exists on chain, and then adding an opportunity for people to put updates and milestones I see on some of these grants. So can you tell me about those updates and milestones?
Let's take for example Gitcoin. So Gitcoin runs these rounds. Like there was a Gitcoin 19 round. There's a 20 round 20 coming up. When I go there and let's say I want to allocate some, like I want to fund some of these projects. One of the challenges is these projects have been on Gitcoin. They're there in every round for the last 2 3 rounds. But like, how do I know like what have they done? What have they accomplished? So they received some funding in the past round. So what have they done? There's no clear way to see that today. So we're like, so what they can do, for example, Gitcoin grantees is they can go and create their grant on Gap. They can post updates there or create milestones saying, if I receive these much funds in 20, I will hit these milestones. Or this is all the things I did in 19. And that is super useful for funders to like go look at it and say like, hey, they have made some good progress. Like I can like, let me go increase my allocation to them this time, or like, okay, I'm not too happy with their progress, so let me just like reduce their funding. Or like as a funder, you can like, you get all these insights based on what these grantees have accomplished. Another cool thing which we did was in the Gitcoin grant stack. If you go to any of the project page, there's a new tab called the grants tab, where we are actually pulling all this information and displaying it in the grant stack itself. Because we built this as a protocol, like we have our front end, but there's no reason for anyone to like, people can build their own front end or integrate this easily. So the protocol defines these clear structures.
Yeah, I think what's cool about these things being on chain is how, since they're a protocol that can be available in many different applications, and I think it's neat that you can not only view these milestones and updates at Karma's Gap site, but also in Gitcoin's applications or any other application in the future, which hopefully just lends to the ability for these milestones and updates to affect the choices of people funding the projects. The more milestones and updates, and the more credible the milestones and updates, ideally, the more funds people will send them in a QF round. But I don't know. We should do a data driven analysis of that to see if it's actually affecting the way people decide what to fund.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love to like work with the Gitcoin team and look at that data. And also, I'm excited for building because these milestones and milestone completions and verifications, it's all on chain. You could technically hook it up to like the allo, like create a like an allo strategy for like a milestone strategy, and then like you could actually disperse funds based on milestone completion too. So that's one of the powers of just having it all on chain.
One of the memes that's been popularized by optimism is this meme of impact equals profit, where basically I think the optimal capital allocation mechanism would be one that connects the impact that you're having to the profit that you're receiving. So it feels like grantee accountability protocol is basically meant to sort of achieve that meme of the more impact you're having, the more milestones and updates you can create, the more people will fund you in a QF or a retro PGF round. I'm just connecting a few dots here, but feel free to push back on that or comment on that if I got it right or wrong.
Yeah, no, that is literally the goal. Right now, the protocol works really well for proactive grants. So you receive a grant, then you go say like, these are all the milestones I'll like hit based on this funding I've received, and you go like post updates. And if you do a good job, hopefully like you get like a subsequent grant. We are adding features to let people kind of like show their impact and proof for like generally for their project, which hopefully can be used when they apply for like retroactive grants, whether it be on Optimism or Gitcoin has the retro grants now, so they could essentially like show all of this work they have done. We are also adding like on-chain like attestations, like the community members can attest to it. So all of those data points could potentially help.
Yeah, it's really quite neat to see. I hope to see a positive feedback cycle evolve, where the more attestations are being created and the more legitimate attestations are being created against the project, the more funding it gets, which creates an incentive for those communities to attest. One of the things that I think has been a problem with these impact measurement things is that if you don't have enough data, then you can't actually spin that flywheel. And yeah, just making sure that more people can not only make attestations but have an incentive to, creates a network effect around the protocol. So hope to see that develop over the next couple seasons of Gitcoin grants and retro PGF in the future.
Yeah, and one of our success metric is also that, like, it's one thing to build reputation, but then, like, what do you do with it? So our metric is like, so if you build reputation, like, you should, like, your project should succeed, like, if it's a good project. So which means success could be like follow on grants, or like more like visibility, like we want to help projects like um, accomplish those. So that's when our protocol will be successful.
Yeah. Well, what didn't I ask about Gap that you want to tell me?
I want to talk about like the longer, like, so what we're doing, it's good, like it helps with like capital allocation, but there's like we're wanting to be like a lot more impactful. So some of the things which we are building, like I could talk about like a couple of things I'm really excited about. So one is today the one of the challenges is there are a lot of grant programs. There are a lot of like platforms like which are being used by program managers and fund allocators to allocate funds. There is the problem of discovery. So the grant programs want high quality builders, and high quality builders like don't want to spend too much time just writing applications or like applying for grants. So one of the things we're doing is like how do we kind of like do like matchmaking. So Gitcoin runs so many grants, and like there's like so many of those like coming up on Gitcoin. There's like other platforms where like there's rounds running. So can we like put all of those in like one format in one way and put it all on chain, and then like kind of build like this whole like high quality builders, and then can we like match them? Um, it's a hard, it's not like trivial, I would say, but like I think there is a way to do it, or at least we want to take a stab at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that new UX paradigms become possible when you have more and more grants on chain and you have more and more money flowing around. You can start to do interesting emergent things with the data there. So it'll be quite interesting to see what is possible. And it feels like you guys are kind of trying to start spinning that flywheel across many different ecosystems.
Yeah. So and then how do we um, like I personally have applied for grants. Like we work with a number of DAOs. Some of them are very well streamlined. Some of them are like very painful. So like how do we make this easy on the builders? And also it's like it's good um, for the DAOs, like if they attract high quality builders. So that is like a personal pain point as well. So I'm like excited to tackle that problem.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you before we were recording, but this season of Greenpill is all about capital allocation machines. Basically, the hypothesis is that we'll be able to do more scalable, precise capital allocation without intermediaries than was possible before, and we'll be able to do more democratic, transparent, and just weird capital allocation mechanisms in the future. I'd love to give you an opportunity to react to that thesis and maybe say a little bit about how Karma and Gap and what's on your roadmap fits into that.
Yeah. So I think I was saying like one of our metric is or the North Star is like how can we help um, builders like get more like funds by like helping them build reputation and showcase that reputation.
Hmm.
The thing we also do is like we work with a lot of like platforms, for example, like with Gitcoin. What we are doing there is when builders apply on Grant Stack, for example, if there is like tons of application, it's so difficult for the round operators to like actually see how do you even like say like who should we shortlist or what should we do. So one of the things which will affect like the projects which are getting funding, like maybe they're so overwhelmed they ignore like some of the quality builders and maybe they don't. So we're like working with with Gitcoin and like seeing like how we can feed a lot of the data and the reputation data we have and help them like shortlist like projects better. And then we are also looking at like how do you reduce the gap between like when someone applies and when they receive funding, right? Like there is no reason to like well, there's technologies there. Like if we can like automate all of these, like, and can you do like near instant allocation of funds? One
Mhm.
example, like one I have seen is Nouns is trying with like with their rounds on Farcaster where people post as just as tweet they cast, and each of those cast itself is an application, and everyone just likes within their community, and that counts as a vote. They're basically like speed running this whole capital allocation. It's an interesting model. I think it has like a lot of like, well, there are pros and cons to it, but it is an interesting model. Yeah, like how do we reduce the number of intermediaries and this one, and make it make the process like seamless and faster. And the place where Gap, I hope, can play a role is just bringing in that reputation angle, which is what like one of the big things you everyone looks at before funding. Like, what is this team? What have they done in the past? So if we could solve that problem, it will make it easy to
Mhm.
allocate capital.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's really promising to a have so much money available to be put into these on-chain capital allocation mechanisms. That's one thing that gives me a lot of hope is that there's lots of DAOs that want to build their ecosystem, and so you're going to have money going into these things. But then I also think that blockchains give just a better medium for moving the funds, not just the money, but because this is all being done on protocols, there's an opportunity for someone like Karma to come together and to come to the table and to do data analysis and to stitch together the protocols and to find ways to add value. And it's really going to be, I feel like we can't predict what's gonna come out on the other side of it, but just there's a critical mass of momentum in builders that makes me feel like this is going to be really special and potentially momentous into the next cycle.
Yeah, but I fully agree. It's just the beauty of these protocols is like everything is a Lego block. So like, how do you like piece them together and like try new things? Yeah, pretty excited for that.
Yeah. Well, if you're maximally successful in 5 or 10 years, what do you think the world looks like?
Success at like pushing it to the limits would mean um, there is this huge ecosystem of builders who near instantly receive funding for things they want to build, and which will and our platform could like help them discover high quality like projects they can build on, and like fairly quickly receive like funding, and then they can show their impact, and then that loop goes like there's a this feedback loop, and successful projects like continue to thrive and grow, and like not successful projects like just die off quickly, so that those
Mhm.
that can thrive. And from the ecosystem point of view, they get exposed to the high quality builders which they can tap into. So I think
Mhm.
of it as like this huge marketplace of like builders and like funds coming together.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess my thesis for this is that this cycle is going to be all about EVM based ecosystems. All these DAOs that have tens of millions, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of money in their treasury, allocating to builders. But I guess one thing I'll be curious about over the 10-year time frame is whether this goes mainstream at all. If someone's doing impactful work in their neighborhood, say it's planting a tree or some other thing that is impactful but not on chain, is not within sort of the niche of technology, if we're able to go mainstream. Um, do you have any sort of comments on that?
I'm optimistic that it will expand beyond the niche we all operate in, which is like the crypto protocols and that ecosystem. Because I mean, you probably already know the grants ecosystem in general, it's massive. Like it's like few hundred billions, or I don't know how much funds are allocated like through grant programs outside of crypto as well. If we solve some of those problems, like which, and I've talked to a few people in the wider grants ecosystem, and a lot of the challenges are the same. Like they don't know how to measure impact, they don't know how to find like quality like people to like allocate capital to. So those problems exist even there. So if we could like solve here, and I see a logical next step is to kind of expand and kind of bring them in, or like we expand out. So
Hmm.
I'm bullish that it's going to happen.
I think one of the problems with measuring impact is that it's just such a multi-vector thing. We've talked about it with Carl and Jonas from the Optimism ecosystem how they're going to measure impact on the podcast before, and some things are very quantifiable. How much block space did you consume? But other things are less quantifiable. You educated people. What's the way that spirals outwards, and how do you quantify that impact? And there's things that are in between, like writing open source code. Some of the open source code that I've written has been really impactful, and it's been the foundation of Gitcoin success. But some of it doesn't get merged, and then it's just hard to measure the impact even if it does get merged. So I'll be curious to see in what ways Karma Gap helps us sort of chip away at those problems and create more accountability for grantees, and hopefully we realize this meme of impact equals profit with the plurality of tools that are being put out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've spent like way too much time thinking about impact measurement. Everyone knows it's such a hard problem. Um, so when there is a hard problem, I'm like, how do we like kind of break it out into small chunks, right? And solve like the smallest problem we have, and then kind of like go from there. And one of the approaches, like I think, and we're at least trying, is um, forget calling it like impact to begin with. Like it's just too much to think about like impact. Can we like start with simple like outcomes? So at least in like the DAOs and the grants which we deal with, the grantee said they'll do this and it will result in this. Let's just first at least try to measure that. Like one is like, did they say what they will do, and did it say what it'll do? Did it do that? Or another way is like short-term impact. Like long-term impact, it's so hard because you need to constantly keep looking at these projects and data for a long time to even like kind of say like, did it have a long-term impact? And we don't have enough data points. But I'm like, just do like outcome to start with. That will like answers a lot of the questions, and then like the immediate impact it had, which is much easier. Like the immediate impact in the last 6 months, did it have anything which you said it did? Because one of the challenges with long-term impact is I worked on a project A, it totally failed, but the project B was really built on the foundations of project A. So how do you like, is project A the most impactful or project B? Like how do you do it, right? And I also feel like people don't probably have the patience, or like everyone says like they want to allocate to for like impactful projects, but I think when they say that, it's really they're talking about short-term impact, because long-term impact takes years. You would have already made the funding decision by then. You would have already moved on. Crypto space moves so fast, especially if you're just talking crypto. So I'm like, outcome and short-term impact is, if we just start there, I think we'll get quite far. So ramble thoughts. That's one, and then subjective and objective. Like there's like the numbers you can like pull, but then the classic good heart law comes into play. So how do you solve that problem? So you should have like some of the subjective things, like what does Kevin think of this project? Like, okay, that has like higher weightage than some Anon XYZ who has no reputation like saying something about it, right? So it's a combination of those two could also help. So we are tackling some of the subjective things through Gap as well. Like who like start with the trusted seed of group of users. Like what do they think of this projects, and then let whoever is making the decision like kind of easily tweak and look at the be able to quantify that.
You mentioned Goodhart's law, which I think that's the one where it's if a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a good measure. I think that's quite interesting in the context of impact attestations and accountability protocols, because milestone updates start to drive the majority of funds. Then those measure becomes a target, and then the system evolves towards a different direction. And I'm almost picturing like an infinite evolutionary game where like every quarter, if there's a Gitcoin grants round, people post their measures. Those measures become targets because there's a funding round, and then it has to evolve forward in the future. I don't know if you have any other comments on Goodhart's law. I just thought it was an interesting thing to pick out from what you said.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen that happening. There are like
really, all right.
There are like people like who like regularly post updates, and like I'm like, okay, like it's like how valuable is that update? Which is why, like, now we are like doing a catch up. Like, the updates need to be verified. Like, who can verify it? And like, or like, anyone can verify it, but like, whose verification has more weightage? So we are even like going down the path of like, can we have this independent group of impact evaluators? Like, can we build like a marketplace of like these impact evaluators who can come in and say like, I'm completely independent person, I just looked at this. Like, can you crowdfund it, right? So that's one way we're like trying to tackle that. We'll have to see how scalable it is, or like how to scale it, but um, but I have seen that in play. Yes, it will definitely happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think you just have to build algorithms that are anti-fragile to Goodhart's law. And, in a world in which blockchains are immutable, like the naive take would be that's impossible, but you just have to design your protocols to be adaptable and anti-fragile and evolutionary.
Yeah, and one other point is, one good thing is, because we are putting all these on chain, like the builders also need to be like careful, like if they are gaming the system, or like if they're like taking advantage of it, everyone can see it. Like, if it can be proved, it just hits their reputation. So it's it's not like you gamed it and it's some sitting in someone's database and it just like lost at some point. Like, it's literally all of these things are on chain. If, for example, on Gap, if you're like spamming by just posting tons of updates, like, you just lose credibility, like, as a builder.
Hmm.
So it's something to like watch out for. So that also helps. I think just putting it all on chain helps.
Yeah. Well, we're getting towards the bottom half of the episode, actually the last few minutes of the episode. And I'm wondering if there's anything that I didn't ask that you want to say.
I would say, if you are a grantee, Gap is like it's the best place for you to like come share your work, share your progress, and we will soon like start helping you get discover grants and get more funding.
Yep. And yeah, curious to see how people play with Karma Gap during GG20, which I think we're recording in the middle of March right now. This will probably come out in April sometime, but GG20 is coming up in April. So curious to see how Gap affects who funds what during GG20.
Yeah, we're excited, and we are also doing a lot of integrations with the grant stack. So looking forward to that.
Nice. Well, Mahesh, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin.
Thanks for listening to the Network podcast. You just heard from Mahesh Murthy. I'm excited about them because I think Karma Gap is a way to introduce more accountability into grant systems, and that is going to help us reach impact equals profit. This podcast features the people who are building a coordination, a network society of thousands of hackers, dreamers, and doers focused on using crypto to bring positive sum digital systems to the world. People like Mahesh, people like the Karma Gap users and community. If you value our work, you can collect this episode at pods.media/greenpill. And while you're at it, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. I will see you next time. Peace.